Hey guys, it's Ellen here. Today we're going to paint a wet on wet, and wet on dry coastal autumn landscape. This is so easy. I go over it step by step. I even give you a reference photo. You're just washing in color, you're wisping up color, putting in color to make this beautiful little autumn marsh scene. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. Also, please hit the bell notification button to know my tutorial is up. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Also, check out my Patreon. I have ad-free videos, traceables, exclusive tutorials on Thursdays, and a live stream once a month on the top tier. It's a place people go and support my channel, which I appreciate so much. You can check it out up here, boop, in a second. So, without further ado, let's get painting. Alright guys, so we're going to go over supplies. I have a piece of Marsh 100% cotton cold pressed paper. I just taped it down with Scotch tape on a thick piece of cardboard. This is like a 7 by 10 inch piece. My palette, my paints, paper towels, water jars, brushes I'll be playing with will be Princeton 12 and 10 Neptune series and Princeton 8 and 4 Velvet Touch series long round. These are just round, the Princeton 10 and 12. The 12 is good for just washing in a bunch of really, a lot of watercolor. I'll activate my paints if they're dry. These I just put some new yellow in because I ran out of yellow and I got some new yellow in. I spray it with a spray bottle. Boop. And if you have the reference photo in the description, the royalty front we're going to go with today. I cut off, the photo goes longer than this, and I took the liberty of cutting off this part of it. So I'm not painting the whole entire marsh. I'm painting the part that I like. And that's what you can do with some of these photographs even you take. You just cut off certain areas that you like. You don't have to paint the whole thing. You can just paint a little snippet of something, and that's what we're going to be doing today. And the reference photo is attached so you can look at it, and it's really going to be attached for excuse me, I'm making a lot of noise here, placement of color and like how you want the composition to look. I might maybe open up, in the center they have, you can barely see the water in here. I might maybe make it a little bit thicker in the back here too. You play around with that. So let's start with the 12. We can do the sky, and you don't have to follow the sky either. You can make whatever color, and you could have made the marsh come all the way down and had a bigger sky. It doesn't matter how you want to do it. So I'm just going to take some ultramarine blue here. I'm going to water it down. I'm also going to water down some cadmium yellow deep. You want to kind of get the colors ready, right? Burnt umber. I have a neutral tint here. All right, then I have peacock blue right here, which I'll add some cadmium yellow deep to. Make it green. Get a nice green. And I have brilliant orange, which I use a lot. And I'll put that in. It's very bright, so I'm not going to use it as is. I'll add some burnt umber to it. Oops, a little too much burnt umber. Get some more orange in there. So it's more of a brown orange we're going for here. Okay. Clean off my main brush here. So I'm just going to wash from this. You see in the photograph, there's just a little bit of sky. So first I'm just going to put down some water. My water has got an orange tint to it. Just the brush didn't take off all the excess orange on there. So I'm just going across that little strip there. And I'll take my ultramarine blue, kind of just put some of that blue. So again, so my blue is not going to be as light as theirs. I kind of wanted it a little more intense. You don't have to follow the rules. I tell you that, guys, this all the time. So there, I'm just going to put that, you put that color in, and then you can kind of hold it up. See, I'm holding it up like this, and it'll bleed down. And obviously, because there's no water here, it's not going to bleed into this part. You can kind of lift up some of that puddling. Oh, it's bleeding down. At this point, if you wanted to add in some deeper blue, I might grab some of that ultramarine and some neutral tint. Let's get a little bit darker in some areas. Let's get a little more dramatic. You know, it doesn't show it in that photograph. Like I said, you don't have to follow the rules. I'm just taking the tip of my brush and actually mixing those two colors and making it a little more intense. Okay, we're gonna let that section dry. Now this section underneath it would be the trees. I don't want to fuss with that too much right now because it will bleed into that and I don't want to do that. So I'm still going to take my number 12 brush and I'm going to add the blue, the pale blue of the water. And I think I'll stick with my ultramarine. And if it's too intense, you can just tap it on the paper towel. So I just have a couple of little strips back here of water. Just really pale blue. I made mine just a little bit bigger than the photograph. Like I said, we're going to follow it, but not to the T. And we've got a little more blue in here. Really pale. It's going to dry pale anyway. It's peeking through here. And then down, of course, here. We get more blue. That's in the forefront. It's pretty pale. Got a couple of streaks that are in there. So I'm just kind of washing in this pale, pale ultramarine. And get some more water on this. A couple of those two little islands kind of in the water. And there's a big one down here in the corner. Just gonna wash in this blue. Really pale. There's a little snippet of a little bit darker one kind of here. I'm sorry, I'm washing down the blue. Oops, gonna grab some more water. I'll just keep putting that blue in. See? Okay. And again, you can make a little more intensity. Might put a little bit more intense blue kind of right here and up here. But I'm keeping it fairly light and a little bit down in here, like you see in the photograph. Not too much color. It's very pale. Just slightly darker in a couple of sections, but really not that much. There we go. So now we've got all the blue in, and then you've got the sky in. You want to wait till this dries. I'm testing it with my finger. All right, it's fairly dry. So now this little strip here, as you can see in the photograph, it's mostly green, dark green, with just little snippets of like the fall colors kind of peeking through over here, yellows and oranges. You'd kind of want to do those first. But how we're going to do that very simply, that's why we mix these colors first. Again, we're going to take water, I'm going to go across this strip like so, where the trees go, just that section. And now we're going to take our oranges and our yellows and our greens. We didn't mix up any dark greens. We're going to do that in a second. But I always like to add a little color to the yellow. It's because it's a little too intense. Okay. We're just going to put some yellows, tap it, right? And then we got the orange. I'm going to tap some of that orange. It's going to bleed out. We got the green. Tap some of the green. Now for the darker green, I use a Prussian blue. Move this neutral tint out of the way. Prussian blue. And the yellow. more Prussian blue, and more yellow. Then I'll add some burnt umber to that. It's a little bit darker. You just keep adding till you get that real intense green you're looking for. I'm still using my number 12 brush because I can play around with even a little peacock blue to get a little bit more blue tone green. So now you're just going to keep playing around with tapping the color. It's only going to bleed where the water is, so don't be afraid. Now this is really bled kind of like, we don't really want that. We wait till it gets a little bit dry and we can go back in and add some color again. See, just going in here. You could take some brown right basically from the tube, kind of tap that in also. And it's darker green on the top here, as you can see in the photograph. We're just going to keep playing around. Actually just tap in some Prussian blue itself with some burnt. See, I'm just taking the tip of this brush, just mixing these colors in here to get that darker green tone, mixing with some browns and some blues. And you kind of do that all across. Now you still want some nice, pretty light greens, so you can put some of those up here where the sun would be shining on them. You can still go in and add some oranges, and like I said, don't have to follow the photograph to the T. I'm going back in and adding. I'm taking it straight from the kind of the tube now that it's dry and not really seeing the yellows. Kind of blend in those colors so you get the fall kind of coming through. See, in here, the intensity. And then it's mostly like green here. This part kind of dried. That's okay. You can kind of just wash in some of that green and some light green. See, I'm just kind of washing in the color here. If it's too much water, I always just come back and take off the excess water from the brush and tap it on my paper towel to get rid of it. It's too much. Grabbing some more yellow so you get that dark green. See, that's still wet now. It's damp, it's not super wet. And you just kind of bleed in that color going across. Gonna make some more dark green. The less water you use, the less it will bleed. So I made it more intense with the concentration of the color. And I can just go back in, even though this is all damp, and just kind of tap in that darker green. Just like so, and it will bleed nicely. Again, you can just grab some, on the tip of your brush, some of this Prussian blue, straight from the tube, maybe even a little of this neutral tint, get it really dark. So you want that dark green kind of look in certain parts. I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to tap in some of that color in between. Green up here. See, I'm just going in and add the blue, mixing some neutral tint and some brown, getting it darker here. Tap some of that darker green up in between the light green you have here, just like that. Get even darker. I'm going to grab some of that neutral tint color that I have. Kind of wash in some of that. Straight down here. Now you do want this to dry before you start playing around with the color in here, because it will get muddy and we don't want that. Trying to make a nice straight line here. Adding in some more of the neutral tint, dark color. But you get the idea, right? Still playing with the 12 brush. If you're finding it's very difficult, grab the smaller brush, grab the 10. The 10 might be a little bit easier to handle. Take some, see, I'm just going to take some, tip of the brush, some really concentrated yellow, and kind of just tap that in with the damp colors, even with the orange too, because it's going to blend in with those. It's a lot of fun to do this. Now, if your paint is really bled and you can't get the color in there, clean off your brush and kind of lift up some of the paint. Show you like real close. Still damp, you can kind of lift up with the brush. It's kind of like mopping it up. See, I'm mopping it up and tapping it on my paper towel. So you're removing the paint. And then you can go back in and you can add the orange, a little bit of yellow, color that you were looking for, or maybe red. You see what I'm saying? Going in and add some orange out here. So that's a little trick. So again, we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to start painting in the marsh and all the fun little leaves and twigs from that. And, you know, we can even paint a tree in the side if you want. I think it shows a slight tree in the side, but you don't have to put that in. I might have cut that out. So wait till this dries and we'll come back. Okay, so once that's dry, we're going to work on the marsh now. So you see a lot of oranges and yellows and browns, and a little bit of green here and there. So we've got, I put some more, a lot of yellow paint. I'm going to mix in some of this burnt umber. It's like more of a mustardy yellow, because that's what you kind of see most of it. I'll grab a little neutral tint and stick that in there also. You want like a nice bright, and then you're going to see the oranges in there too, and the green would be just a neutral kind of green. You're going to need a fair amount of this paint. So you can work with the 12 brush, or you could switch to the 10. I'll just switch to the 10 so we can work in little increments for you guys. Now you can see in the photograph, just squint your eyes. See like an orange stripe here, there's like a light green one in here. There's just a lot of different tones. So you're going to kind of blend that in. And you can do wet on dry. So here's, I've grabbed some water, but I'm going to grab some of this yellow. And I think it's too yellow, right? It's a more orangey kind of tone. So mix some of this orange in here. See what we've got. Yeah. Just playing with this color a little bit. Grab some water. And I've mapped out kind of where I'm sticking this color. Now I did see that little green hue kind of back here. I'll just throw that in, and I'll get the yellow right next to it, really intense yellow, going around that blue. We want to keep that blue. We don't want to lose that blue. Again with this yellow, pretty intense yellow. Throw in a little oranges. See, I'm just kind of pushing in the orange. Just take your time with this, guys. That's why I use a smaller brush. Smaller brush makes you go slower. Now back here, I might see a little more brown, so I added some brown on my brush. I just put it right on my brush. I didn't clean off my brush. Put it right on there. So you can go back and add some brown right there, right on my brush. Grab a little more concentrated and tap off some of the water on the paper towel. See, I'm grabbing the brown. Getting a little more brown. Just feels like it's more brown. Let me grab a little neutral tint on my brush too. Tap off the excess on the paper towel. Go back here. And then I go in between right here. I have the blue. Got to be careful around the blue because you don't want to wipe it out. Now I do see that it's still very yellow. I want to get more orange, intense color. Does it look a little more orange? yellow-orange kind of tones. But you don't have to keep it that way. You can keep it more on that mustardy yellow kind of look. You see I'm kind of playing around with mixing the color, getting some of that burnt umber, get more of that yellow again, grab some water, taking my time, grab some of this neutral tint and brown. It's pretty dark right here along the edge of the water. So you can add some of that brown and neutral tint color. We're going to be wisping the part of the Marsh. So this is starting to dry. I'm going to go back in and add some of this orange. Just take your time. See, I'm mixing the orange and the yellow. If you want to just get this wet, see, I'm getting it wet with the color here. It might be a little bit faster. Not super wet though. So you just washed in a color. And now I can go in and add my colors across. So the orange, yellow, a little more of that brown. Don't be afraid, guys. Playing around with adding some yellow. My colors are getting a little more intense. It doesn't have to be the same thing as the photograph. I'm going to throw in a little green, actually. Throw in some more green up here. Like I said, you get the general idea. Just kind of throw in the color. Might help if you turn it on its edge. Like turn on the side, edge. You know, sometimes the brain is not working well. I'm grabbing the yellow, as you see, and some orange. And we've got those little islands in the middle here. They're a mixture of green and yellow and orange. So I'm doing the same thing. Putting in some green, some yellow, and some orange. Now right now they look a little blobby. We're going to put the grasses in a second. You just want to get the basic colors in. Still playing around with this. Adding in some brown tones, neutral tint. We can always go back on top of it, by the way, after it dries. So don't freak out. Going back in here, adding some light, intense yellow. And then down in here, you can see some spots of like darker. So I'll just keep playing with this, adding the color and just getting it right to where I feel it looks good. And same for you. You know, you have to be your own judge and jury with this stuff. So we're getting the general color in. I'm not going to fuss with this one just yet. That will be the last one. Takes enough time for this one. Okay. You get the color in there. You see in the photograph really kind of darker, blackish brown always in the sections and under here and here. So again, I'm going to grab that neutral tint and the burnt umber, fairly dark, minimal water, really protect a dark brown. Just going to have that go in here. It's going to bleed, and we kind of want it to, because it's still a little damp. You don't want to bleed too much, but you want it to bleed. You don't see it everywhere with this deep color, but you see it on the edges out in these sections. Right, and a little bit out here. The least amount of water on this color, the least it will bleed. All right, you don't want it to bleed too much. You want it to bleed a little bit, but not a lot. So that's why you put it on when it's damp. You want to test your paper. Make sure it's not too wet. Going in here, putting the color in. Some parts might have dried already. It's okay, you can just go back in with some. I'm gonna put little taps of this color over in these sections. Not too much black in those sections. Just kind of over in here and back here. And really concentrate a dark neutral tint back here. And you just got a little bit of in here. You just got to squint your eye when you're looking at a photograph. And you're like, oh, there's a little piece here. Some bleeding a little bit here. You know, that's kind of what you do. You see a little bit of a line out here. You know? It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. Now we're going to get into the 4 and the 8 of the Princeton long round to make the grasses. So we've got I'm going to start with the 4 actually. And this is where we're going to be playing around with getting a little more tint. So I'm going to mix some more green with the peacock blue and the yellow. A little bit of the burnt umber. We've got the yellow and the orange here. So just going to show you, I'm going to zoom in, the grasses. Going to be using a combination of all those colors. See, I'm going to go up, movement like this. Get the orange, grab some yellow, going yellow, going up, just like that. With the sound effects, I'm grabbing some green off my brush because as you can see, there's some green in here. From the brown going up, you can grab some brown, kind of pushing that up. See, I'm grabbing the colors on my brush as I go. I might take off some of it, and I might keep it on. And here I'm going like this, and you get those grasses. And you can see they're all different colors kind of combining. You squint it, it's like one color, but then you need to put the 4 different colors in there. So I'm going back and grabbing that black, brown color. Now, it's also going the opposite way, right? Because the reflection. So you're going to take some of that brown kind of color, go like this on the side. Just kind of wash a little of this color here. See that? Next to the little island. And then you're going to grab some of the browns and you're going to make the little grasses go the opposite way. See? In the water. Kind of going downward too. Same thing with here. Then we're going to grab some more of this black neutral tint color and some brown. Get the more tints because it was missing in here. We're going to go back in here and add some of that. And get the grass with that black color. Boom, boom, boom. Da, da, da. Sound effects and all. Do you see how it's working now? Again, just throw a little couple ones in here, as you can see. And then you clean up your brush and you grab some yellow, browns, all that stuff. Make the grass as wild as you want. And don't worry if it doesn't look exactly like, you know, the picture. Don't get bogged down with that kind of stuff. So then, how we did that, you kind of want to do the same thing along the edges of the other ones right here. I'm going to start doing the grasses. You can't do it all over the place. You're just going to get the idea of it. So I'm going to wash in like a brownish, not brownish, I'm sorry, like a brown, yellow, orange kind of again. Down below here. And then you do the little spikes, brown, kind of coming like this. The grasses. I mean, you can look at the picture and you can see what I'm talking about. And of course, you'll have to go back in and add some of the grasses up here. See, there's some brown ones. So it makes sense, right? Grabbing that dark brown, black grass. Get even blacker. You kind of wanted it concentrated, but not too concentrated, so you can actually move your brush. See? You get a little black in here. So I don't need to show you every minutia of how to do this. I'm showing you how to do this in the sections. But so you can get the idea, right? You're going to fill in the black here. Put some little wisps up, go this way. And then you grab some of the browns and you put the wisps down that way. It's like a one neutral tint color, like a light brown, greenish brown. And you're going to wisp it the opposite way. Don't make so many of them, it looks kind of goofy. But you get what I'm saying? I hope you do. Right? So you're going to do that on the ones you can really see. Well, I'll deal with the other stuff later. So now the bottom grass. I'm going to just wash in some of this yellow color here. This is the corner grass. It's really going to have detail because you're really seeing it. It's up close, right? I'm going to grab all the oranges. I'm going to bleed in some color first. I'm doing the grasses. There's some dark brown, green. Again, don't have to follow exactly. Making some green color here. There's some more intense green down this way with some brown. Mine won't be perfect like that one in the picture. There was like a little black branch or brown branch in here. You can just throw that in. But you get the idea again with this, the grass. Orange color. There's a lot of bright like orange in there. The sun was beating on it. And the grass. When that dries, you might want to go back in and add another layer of some deeper grasses so it just stands out better. Like you can see, I don't want it to bleed right now. If I start putting this dark color in right now, it's just going to bleed, 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 bleed. I want the tense grasses to kind of go in. You know, I'm just going to put this in and it might bleed too much. It's still damp. We want some like real nice detail. And down here too in the front, on the left side, take some of those browns that we have and you can start to go make some nice detailed grasses when that's dry with green. You know, same thing. Same thing with this section over here. Just in these areas, you're going to have some detailed grass. You won't have it throughout this whole marsh. You might extend some of it, like up in here, but you don't want to do a lot. It depends on how much you have time and you want to sit there and do a little teeny. It might look ridiculous if you do all these little marks. You see what I'm saying? You're getting the idea. Another little trick, I didn't even talk about this. There is a fan brush, and you could just take the fan brush, grab some of those colors, and you can make little marks so it looks like little grass. It's not really working on that dark color, but grab some of the browns. Play around with this brush. You see? Grab some of the orange. And it gives you that illusion of grass. Don't do it everywhere. It looked kind of goofy, you know. I wouldn't even suggest it, but like I said, go in these other sections. Gonna put the brown in, the water, and we're gonna just wisp down some of the grasses that you see. See, wisping down. You kind of like place the color first on its side. like I showed you. And then you take the browns and kind of wisp out the color. And then you go back in with the intense blackish brown kind of colors and wisp them up. In certain sections, and then wisp them down. I think you guys are pretty smart. You don't even have to wisp it. If you want a really abstract kind of scenario, I wouldn't even bother with the ones out here. You might go crazy. You could if you wanted to. Put some of the color and wisp it. It's like that orange color. You might make yourself a little nuts. See, again, I'll add the black, brown. Wisp out some of the color here. You get the idea. They're just grasses. And then again on the other side. Down, down. You don't want to do everywhere. Make yourself nuts. I'm just taking a darker brown and wisping it down here. Because you could go cuckoo. So this is fairly dry in the bottom. Like I said, you go back in with the black and the browns, and you really just put a nice streaks so it looks like nice grass. And I get a little bit darker on the bottom. And then you go back in with the yellowish browns and then put the grasses in this way. See, it's going to look more like what it was in the picture. Same thing over here. Like I said, when it's dry, you can go back and manipulate, adding the darker color on the edge. What you want to do. Let's try in here and add some in here. See, it's constantly adding and subtracting, right? And then clean up your brush and you grab some yellows and oranges. This one's a little bit more damp. Put those grasses in. You get the idea. I'm going back in here. Now that this is kind of dry, I'll grab some more yellow. And some pale green. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, you could, like I said, there was a tree on the side. If you wanted to add the tree, just some branches are kind of like poking through out here. Take the number 4. Just gonna put the little branches poking through. Just take your little number 4 brush, make all those little twiggy twigs, and just add some different interest. You didn't even have to add this. Just a bit kind of fun. There's a tree poking on the side. And again, take some of this black, make some wild grass. See? Same thing out here. Now, last thing I didn't do. You might want to add a little more. I would take the number 8 brush, ultramarine blue, to water it down, because it kind of washed away a little bit. You can just take your brush, hold it on its side, and just make a couple little strokes, you know, for some more interest with the water. Just adding in. Don't have to do this everywhere. Just to kind of around the islands. And maybe down towards this grass. See how I'm holding it inside? I've watered it down, just kind of like pushing that paint around in certain areas. Just to give it a little oomph, a little something something. You don't have to do this. I'm choosing to do this. Adding a little more. All right. And there we go. So I'm going to lift up my tape. See what we got. The tape is the best part, don't you think? I think so. It's like an instant frame. And voila. Now if you want to go back onto your trees up in here, the top. Sorry, I'm losing everything around me. With the dark green, you could take your number 8 brush, Princeton, and you just kind of go back in again. So I'm kind of just tapping in some deep, intense green color. It's because it really just kind of washed out. But you can go ahead and do that. Wet on dry. Just go ahead and like see I'm just tapping with the brush, kind of pushing some paint around. Just get a little bit darker in certain areas that you think it just washed out too much. I feel like it did wash out a lot up here, and I want a little bit darker. Don't be afraid to go back over it. Just be careful not to wash out your pretty oranges and yellows. That's that, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. And yeah, have fun with it. Don't get stressed out. You know, do the little wisps. Like I said, you know, in this area I might have added some more color. I might go back in after this and put a little more dark. See, I put that dark color in there and wash it down a little bit. A little more orange. You kind of stand back and you say, See, I would have probably, normal, because it's a tutorial, I would took off the tape, but I would kind of wait and then go back in and see what I wanted to put in. I'm adding a little more orange. You can go ahead and do that. More intensity. I feel like this got washed out too. I'm going to add a little more orange here. Orange, yellow. Be careful if you did what I did and you painted a tree first. But don't be afraid. Just go back in and add some of that color. Voila. There we go. So take care, guys. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.